Welcome to Grounding Ascension, where we explore the process of activating and integrating our I Am presence. I am your host, Celeste Glus. Welcome back, my lady friends, and I'm going to guess you are a lady if you clicked on this episode, and if you are not, well, I commend you for listening to this conversation, which is so much needed at this time by every single genre of a human being that exists on this planet. And as you have already seen, the topic of today's conversation is the sacred power of our menstrual cycle. We are going to be talking about tapping into the sacred power of our cycle, menstrual shame, and 3 tips on how to tap into the power of your cycle. Whew, I am so ready to have this conversation. And honestly, if you are open to it, having so many more conversations around this topic, I have become so freaking obsessed and passionate around the Divine Mother, the Divine Feminine, and the power of menstruation, more specifically since moving to Hawaii at this point, it's been about 6 months ago. I have been working intimately with the Divine Feminine for many years now, if you have read my book or followed my work. But more specifically, I thought this would be a perfect time to bring this up because of the 3rd episode of Grounding Ascension podcast was about the Divine Mother awakening. So this is actually one of the pillars of my work. The fact that Divine Mother frequency is awakening on our planet, and it is she is asking us to open our eyes, to peel back the layers of our heart, and to understand and see and live the beauty of what it means to be a human on this planet. And in this case, most specifically, a woman with a womb. And the more I work with this, the more women I work with, the deeper I go into this topic, the more magic and profound wisdom unfolds before me. And I can't take any credit for it. It is literally the Divine Feminine just simply working through me. And I'm just freaking excited to be talking about this and sharing this with you. So let's go straight into it. The sacred power of our menstrual cycle. Well, first and foremost, we as a humanity, and I'm talking about men, women, and everyone in between, we have forgotten the power and the significance of what it means to live in cycles, of what it means to live in flow and in tune with the sacredness of life. And this goes hand in hand with losing our understanding of the power and significance of our period. It goes hand in hand. We as a humanity have lost the sacredness of life. And I genuinely believe that as the Divine Mother awakens, she is asking a lot of us to bring back the sacredness of life. And when I say the sacredness of life, I am talking about a very particular substance. It's almost like a texture of air that you can touch. The frequency of the substance of life is shifting before our eyes. And if you are following me through these cosmic gateways and these portals and all the work that I am doing, you are feeling into the transmutation of the human templates. You are feeling into the transmutation and the transformation of this time. And yes, it's chaotic, and yes, it's messy, but you know what? Our periods are chaotic and our periods are messy. And you know what lies behind that messy chaos? Profound, magical, powerful wisdom. And that's the tie that we have forgotten. We have forgotten that as a humanity, we need to experience the uncomfort, the chaos, and the mess in order to tap into something so sacred and so deep and so necessary for this sacred substance to be reawakened within us. And right now, I can't hold back my tears because that's how passionate I feel about it. And that's how the divine feminine works through me. She is asking that we just surrender to this understanding, to this knowing, to this mystery of life. And all of this weaves back into the responsibility as women that we hold to come back to our menstrual cycle. We are handing over our body's wisdom to technology and to apps more often than not. And it's so sad, ladies and gentlemen, every time I see someone just offer up their body to some kind of technology. And I'm not against technology. I love it. Because of it, I'm speaking to you right now. So I am eternally grateful for technology. And yet, the more technologically advanced we are, the more we need to plug into ourselves. It's just like the law of energy. The more expanded we are, the more we need to tune into our infinite portal of wisdom. So as energy flows outwardly, it also flows inwardly. And that goes with our wisdom and our ability to tap into our body's sacred technology. Ladies, we have sacred, ancient, intelligent technology within us that for most of us has been lost. And we have so many crazy apparatuses that are being built at this time to take over that ability to tap into our body. And you know what? Every time one of us does that, we lose a strand of potential in the fabric of women wisdom. It's a reflection of the lost spiritual connection in our society. I really do believe, ladies, that we have a very significant role in recreating the spiritual substance of our life. And you can actually, if you're into that type of stuff, you can listen in or read into a lot of Llewellyn's work. He is a Sufi teacher and he is brilliant. And I am so inspired and so moved by his work because when he speaks, it's like he's speaking the way that my soul speaks to me. It's just known that we as women have a responsibility to tap into the sacred power of our menstrual cycle. And we are the only ones that can do it. Technology can't do it. Men cannot do it. No one else can do it for us. Not a birth control pill, not a pharmaceutical company. And this, obviously you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about getting this message out there. So I also believe that it's the reason why so many people, men and women, because ladies, we are literally our womb, our ability to be a creatrix in this world. We are creating the foundation of this substance, of the spiritual substance of life. And when this spiritual substance is lacking in our society, what happens? People begin to feel drained and lost and disconnected and not alive. They don't have this magical substance within their blood because it is literally, our blood is not connected to us. And when we begin to connect to our blood, we begin to transform and alchemize the blood of the entire race of humanity. I'm telling you, I know this for a fact. So again, we have this beautiful, important, and powerful role to recreate the substance of spirituality in our society. And simply bringing awareness to this topic is already shifting your frequency, is already waking up your womb. I am literally coming over and tapping on the energetic space of your womb to wake up to this beauty, to this ancient wisdom that has been lost. And so I ask you, dear goddess woman, are you connected? Are you tuned in to the wisdom of your womb? Are you ready and willing to take this step for not only yourself, but your children and your community and humanity as a whole? When we begin to run on autopilot, like so much of our Western society, we just have a routine, we wake up, we go, 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 we just allow the subconscious to run our lives. We are not tuned in to the magical wisdom of life. And automatically, inherently in that statement, we are not tuned in to the wisdom of our womb. It's like what Abraham Hicks talks about, right? She's this promoter of tapped in, tuned in, turned on to the flow of life. And we as women can go 10 times further into that statement because we have the energetics of a womb. So when we start to connect to our womb, life becomes alive. Literally, life has meaning, and it's like she awakens and she has a personality and she begins to interact with you, and we can begin to create from a much more powerful and integral place. If you know my work, you know that being a creatrix, being a woman with a womb, you have the ability to create the substance of life, the reality that you live. And when you begin to create this reality from a very powerful, integral place, the world and the reality that you live will automatically transform. And we have the opportunity right now to see this, to live it, to be the change. So I ask you, what place are you making and acting from? Where are you moving and making your decisions from? Is it the mind? I mean, no judgment. I get it. That's how I was trained. I mean, I went to school for freaking economics. You know, my mind was on fire. I was a mental robot on steroids out of college because that's how our bodies are trained in this realm, in this society. But it's our responsibility to come back to the wisdom of our womb, to come back to the wisdom and the magic of our lives. And when we are plugged into the matrix, when we are just running on unconscious programs, we are not tapped into our womb's wisdom. It's literally not possible. The Divine Mother did not structure reality that way. So either you're tapped into the matrix or you're tapped into your womb's wisdom. And let me be very clear and practical about this. So many of us are constantly shifting between both, right? Tapping into the matrix, being unconscious, and then tapping into our wisdom. And that's how it starts, right? You maybe tap into the full moon and the new moon, and you begin by having rituals around that. And once in a while, maybe when you have your period, you are reminded that you are a woman with this thing that's happening. And the more that you can train your body and your spirit to remember that this living spiritual substance lives inside of you, you can start to tap in and unfold the layers of wisdom in your life. And when we can start to see this, when we can really tune in, that is when we begin to see the magic and the power of our menstrual cycle. That is when we can really experience it firsthand. And let me be also very clear about the fact that if you were born as a woman with a womb, this pertains to you, because so many women can, try to opt out of this responsibility by saying, no, that doesn't apply to me. I'm already too old. I'm post periods. I'm menopause. I'm this, I'm that. No, my love. If anything, you even have a stronger role and a more important role amongst women, because now you are being initiated as an elder, as a wise woman. So it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your womb is or isn't. What matters is that you embrace the responsibility of bringing this back in to the substance of life. And I do want to talk about menstrual shame because it's a real thing. And from what I see, it's very alive. So there's almost like a division of worlds. There's a group of women who are super empowered by their period, and I love that. I think it's great. But I think most women are still falling into menstrual shame. And I think we need to really be clear and start to open up about the fact that this is one of the most profound and beautiful experiences for being a woman. Being able to bleed is a rite of passage on a monthly basis. And that's how it was treated for so long, for millennia upon millennia, through all ancient cultures. And for reasons that I'm not going to talk about right now, we are not allowed to bleed, and we're not allowed to make that normal. And so I ask you to be really honest, because I thought I didn't have menstrual shame before I got into this work. And as I got deeper into this work, I realized, oh, there is a lot of menstrual shame still within me, still within my body and within my blood. So let's get really real about this. How has menstrual shame played out in your life? Do you still have lingering thoughts about menstrual shame? If you're in a partnership, more specifically with a man, are you hiding your days of bleeding, or are you hiding some part of your bleeding rituals and ceremonies and process? And what did you actually learn from your first experience with having a period? Because what I have seen 100% of the time is that a woman's first initiation, her first experience with her blood, is actually carried through time, no matter how empowered she is, until she actually transmutes that experience. There needs to be some kind of ritual or ceremony around that experience in order to alchemize that from ourselves. And this is not talked about enough. So we can be empowered all we want, but if deep in our subconscious mind we are still carrying around menstrual shame, it's going to show up. It's going to show up because it's part of our sacral and root chakras. It's going to show up in our sexual force. It's going to show up in the way that we express ourselves in the world. It's going to show up in the way that we move in the world. It's going to show up in the way that we feel safe and supported by life. And most importantly, ladies, it's going to show up in the way that we are able and willing and open to access the power of the divine feminine within our lives. So get curious about menstrual shame. Even if you do feel that you're super empowered as a woman, are there still little nitbits that you can find while you are bleeding? And if you are not bleeding, can you tap into a very specific cycle of the moon and create sacred rituals every month around that cycle? It doesn't have to be this long-lasting 3 to 4 day, never-ending cycle, but it can definitely be a few hours, a few days at a time, where you just carve out a sacred ritual between you and Mother Gaia, or the moon, or the sacred spirituality of life, whatever you want to call it. Let us not put blockages on the words that we use. Let us get real about what we are talking about. Because I find that language closes us off from receiving the frequency and the messages sometimes. And we need to get past that BS. I don't want to start cursing on this platform, but we need to get real, ladies. We need to honor this process. So if shame is holding you back from experiencing the magic and the wisdom that is you and the joy of our menstrual cycle, what are you going to do about it? Let's journal about that. Let's create a rite of passage for yourself. Let's create a ritual of transformation and alchemy. And I have women do this in our Women Wisdom mentorship program. And it's so necessary. And so many of us, whenever we're like older than 20 or 30, it's like, no, I can't do that. I'm too old for that. No, sweetheart. Our cells don't know time. The mother, the divine mother within us, the mother is the carrier of time. She does not hold time against you. but our cells are quantum, and we need to understand that we are holding memory in our cells, and most importantly, in our wombs. Whew. And lastly, I cover so much about womb healing and healing this shame, not only about menstrual cycles, just about womanhood and the divine feminine within our womb, in the Woman Wisdom Mentorship Program and in so much of my work. So the days of menstrual shame are over. We need to not only embrace our period, but honor it as a sacred passage that is just inherently built in within our bodies. And we are so freaking honored and humbled to have this system that's already built into our bodies. It's the best gift of life. You just have to open yourself to see it that way. And there has not been, let me tell you this before we get into the 3 tips, there has not been one woman that has crossed my path that has not been mesmerized and taken back by the power of this work and by the power of her menstrual cycle after working with this kind of stuff. After being a part of the Woman Wisdom Mentorship or going deep into the wisdom of the womb, there has not been one woman that can look at me in the eyes and say, yeah, I'm not really touched by the womb. No, like her entire essence and auric field is lit up by the power of this kind of work. So I invite you to get super curious. And I'm so happy that you're here listening to me because I know that you are curious. It's truly a powerful force, ladies. So let's get into it. 3 tips on how to tap into the power of your cycle. Well, first and foremost, let's be very real. You need to get to know your body. You need to get tapped in to what is happening in your body. And too many women are not even aware of their inner seasons. They're not even aware of the language of their womb. The womb is a whole universe in itself, and it is literally trying to speak to you month after month after month, day after day after day, week after week after week. And she has something to tell you every single day and every single season. It's the reason why I created the free Align with Your Womb Wisdom course, so that you can at least start to chart the cycles of your body. Because if you don't even know what cycle you're in or what season you're in or what your womb is trying to tell you in each season, you cannot tap into the magic of your menstrual cycle. It's like wanting to run before you could even stand. That's literally the difference. So begin to chart your cycle. And this is going into the second step. But before I even talk about charting, I want you to understand that understanding your body and the power of being a female with a womb is precisely the wisdom of the mother that has been lost in our patriarchal society. And we are, every single one of us, as we begin to get to know our bodies and our inner seasons, and not only get to know it, but actually trust and surrender to it, right? That's the second part. It's like, great, I know that I'm in spring. I know that I'm in summer. I know that I'm in winter. What am I actually doing to honor this cycle? That's the language of the womb that I'm talking about. And as we honor that practice every day and every week of our month and our cycle, we are taking fertility back into our hands. We are reawakening the language of our womb that has been desecrated by the patriarchal society. And without doing this, our ability to create has been stripped away from us. So in order to recreate that, bring that back into our essence, we have to get to know our bodies. And there's no app out there, I don't care how many things it tracks, and I'll be creating more content around that, but there is no app out there that's going to reawaken the power of your cycle and the magic of your menstrual cycle for you. You have to do it for yourself. And so, how I just mentioned earlier, the second tip is simply begin charting your cycle. And again, if you're not bleeding, choose a very specific phase of the moon and start aligning your life to that phase. So your day one of bleeding would just simply be the full moon or the new moon or the first quarter X, Y, and Z. Begin charting your cycle, ladies. Again, it's part of the free course. You just take the free course, you download the chart, and you get paper to pen. And when you do that, what you're actually doing, you're not putting paper to pen. That's the physical part of the practice. The internal spiritual recuperation of the substance of life is tuning into your body, is tapping into your womb and giving your womb a place to express itself. And you're going to notice, I promise you, after just a few weeks, maybe if you're really disconnected or if you're on the birth control pill, it might take a few months of charting. But at some point, you're going to notice that your womb is speaking to you. And she is telling you things and she's giving you monthly themes. It's incredible the language that you will awaken once you begin to chart your cycle. So definitely check it out. And I've also created an entire Activate Your Womb Wisdom course that goes into a natural form of birth control. And I'm not even going to go into birth control right now because that will just take me on a whole nother path. But if you really want to take fertility into your own hands and take your practice of charting to a whole new level, to really deepen the practice of charting, because aside from charting daily, you should be really taking measure of so many more things that are happening in your body, which are connected directly to your womb, like your dreams, like your eating habits, like your emotional patterns, like your mental patterns. All of that needs to be a part of you tuning into your body's wisdom. And that's what I talk about in the next level of Activate Womb Wisdom, which goes deeper into charting fertility and having a natural birth control option and really getting in tune to this magic of your womb. Okay, so the next tip, which would be tip number 3, is to actually honor your period, to honor your bleed. And again, if you're not bleeding, you honor a specific cycle of the moon or part of the month. And what do I mean by that? You actually create a sacred ritual. You carve out space and nothing or no one comes in between you and that time that is carved out. I don't care who or what is on your plate. And yes, for some women, it becomes way harder than others, but that's okay. You know, you train the people around you, perhaps your kids, your partner, you train them to be a part of this ritual if you have to. Hey, kids, I'm having a womb ritual. Come join me. This is what we do. We sit down and we breathe together, right? Like that's what it takes to bring this wisdom back into our communities and into our lives so that little boys don't grow up being scared of blood, right? Like we have to make this a practical thing. And if you're lucky enough, then you get to carve out a few hours. Maybe you get to carve out a few hours every day of your bleed. Whatever it looks like, make it happen, ladies. Honor your period and honor your bleed. It's literally the missing piece between you and awakening the magic and the power of your menstrual cycle. And I'm just going to give you 2 more tips because I can't hold myself from doing so. So 2 more tips. One is please go natural. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but if you're on a tampon or if you're on birth control, please, ladies, do your research. I myself have put off so much information. I've put up so much information for you to have that there's no reason that you should be taking any kind of pharmaceutical drug or synthetic fabrics in your body, in your vaginal canal, or anything of that nature. So please go natural. Use a Diva cup. Use something that's completely organic. Okay, and the last one is actually eating according to your inner seasons. So, eating to your cycle, okay? I, by trade, am a holistic nutritionist, and it is beyond my wildest imaginations what I have seen when I actually throw away so many of the things that I have learned and actually honor my cycles as the wisdom to guide me in how I'm supposed to eat from week to week. It's incredible. And it has actually taken away all of the pain. I do not suffer from PMS at all. It's rare unless I am experiencing immense levels of stress or activations, which happens from time to time. But food and eating according to the inner seasons is incredibly life changing. And not only that, but it is actually amazing for your hormones. So you should be eating according to your cycle. And again, I talk about this in my free course and all of my woman wisdom courses. So definitely tune into how you're eating and to your inner cycles if you're not already doing so. Remember that the food that we eat, the substance of energy that we merge with, quite literally becomes the substance of life within us. So it is very important the quality of food that we eat and how we're approaching our meals. And so, with that, my lady friends, and maybe some gentlemen out there who are courageous enough to listen to this kind of conversation, I close off this episode and I welcome you and I invite you to get curious about how deep you can go with the power of your menstrual cycle. I am never taken back by how each cycle brings with it more wisdom and more opportunities to explore this magical substance of life that we have within us. So I invite you to get curious and please let me know how your process goes. If you are taking the free course or any of the other courses, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your feedback, your insights, and maybe even topics on what you would like to hear on this series of Woman Wisdom. Okay, until next time, mahalo for tuning in. Sending you so much love. Mwah.